Hello, everyone. We're waiting on one other commissioner. Great. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first ANC 1C meeting of 2022. And we have a quorum, so that's great. How's everybody doing? Okay, so the first order of business is to approve the agenda. The agenda was posted online. Are there any additions or deletions on the agenda? Okay, so I move to add a settlement agreement on to the agenda. The Entice settlement agreement was agreed to yesterday by all parties and signed by the owner of Entice today. And so I would like to add that to the agenda today. Could I get a second, please?
I'll second that.
Okay, so all those in favor of moving the Entice settlement agreement to the agenda, could you please say aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any objections or nays? Any abstentions? Okay, so that's 7-0 for movement on the Entice settlement agreement to the agenda. That's great. So the agenda has been updated and adopted. So then the next item on the agenda is the election of the ANC 1C chair for 2022. Do we have any nominations?
Like to nominate Commissioner Clem for chair.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
I second that. I just wondered if we should do introductions before we move to that. Sorry, I think that.
Is it possible that I skipped that? It's possible I skipped that, Commissioner Faulkner. Thank you so much. All right. Yes, let's go around the neighborhood. We'll start with 1CO2, please. Commissioner Carano?
Hi, everyone. My name is Celeste Carano. I'm the commissioner for 1CO2 on the west side of Adams Morgan between Calvert and Connecticut.
Hi, Peter Wood, 1C03, right in the middle, Biltmore to Wyoming, 18th to 19th.
Hi, Megan Faulkner, commissioner for 1C04, the northwest corner of Adams Morgan around Walter Pierce Park.
I'm Deb Felsenthal, commissioner for 1C05 in the also like northwest area of Adams Morgan, covering Lanier Heights and the top part of Columbia Road.
And Boots, 1C06 on the eastern side of the ANC on 16th Street, down to Colorama, and then kind of around through the neighborhood and up.
Commissioner Jake Valaskini, 1C07, the heart of Adams Morgan. It's always fighting words, and I'm going to continue to say it every month.
And my name is Fiona Clem. I serve in 1C08 in the southeast corner of Adams Morgan. Thank you, Commissioner Faulkner, for reminding us for introductions. And I would like to welcome Commissioner Felsenthal, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you so much. 1C05. She was just sworn in a week ago. Thank you so much.
Glad to be here.
Great. Okay, so now we can move on to the part where we elect the chair. So there are nominations. I think we're at the second, and we've got a second for the chair. And then I think we have to call that to a vote. Commissioner Boots?
I'll call that to a vote then.
Yes, please.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, and thanks, Commissioner Boots. And so next we will elect the slate of officers and committee members for 2022. I would like to nominate Commissioner Boots as the vice chair of ANC 1C. For treasurer, I'd like to nominate Commissioner Faulkner. For secretary, I would like to nominate Commissioner Falaschini. And for the Adams Morgan Partnership bid representative, Commissioner Wood from 1CO3. Along with those, I'd like to propose for the Alcohol Beverage Control and Public Safety Committee, chair would be Commissioner Wood, and the members would be Commissioner Falaschini and it's Skeeny, right? I'm sorry, am I pronouncing that correctly? Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Clem. For Planning, Zoning, and Transportation, the chair of that would be Commissioner Faulkner, and the members would be Commissioner Falaschini, and there is a vacancy that we have decided we're reserving the vacancy for the PZ&T third member. And the Public Safety and Environment Committee chair would be Commissioner Carano, and the members of that committee would be Commissioner Boots and Commissioner Felsenthal. Do I have a second on that panel, on that slate of assignments for 2022?
A second.
Thank you. Are there any discussions or questions about this slate? Are there any changes or suggested changes to this slate? Okay, let's vote on this slate. All those in favor of this slate for 2022, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? Okay, that passes 7-0. All right, great. Next on the agenda, we have the officers' report. We will start with the secretary. Secretary Falaschini.
Thanks. I don't have a lot to report except around Marie Reed. There have been a lot of changes around openings. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody's aware of some of the changes that are happening with the school. Students are going to be required to get a test, a negative test before they enter into the school. And that goes for Cook, that goes for Marie Reed, that goes for all of the public elementaries that are in our district at the Adams School. So that's going to be required before tomorrow. And then there is going to be another round of free vaccinations that are coming up as well, but we don't have that scheduled yet for the neighborhood for the pediatric vaccinations. And then just so everyone's aware too, there's now a mandatory mask mandate back in effect for DC. There's also a mandatory vaccine requirement that is going to start on January 15th. That's going to require one vaccination in order to enter into any bars, restaurants, gyms, or any other places of high physical activity in the city. And then starting February 15th, it'll be required that you have 2 vaccinations in order to enter. So those are the updates that I have. I think I set one other aside, but I guess it's not. Oh, yes. Also, there is electronics recycling will take place this Saturday, January 8th. For all up at the transfer station at Benning Road Northeast, for all electronics that you need to dispose of that would otherwise be hazardous to throw in the regular trash. So that's going to be from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. At the transfer station on Benning Road. That's it.
Thank you, Secretary Falaschini. Next to the Treasury's report, Treasurer Faulkner, please.
Great. Just one moment, I'll share my screen. The treasurer's report this month is that we are reviewing our quarterly financial report, which is on the consent agenda for approval. Just for awareness, we did get several allotments during last quarter at the beginning in October. And then we also had some expenditures, some grants, some payments for our accountant and for, for Gordon for our meetings. So there were some large expenditures and we ended at about 11,251. I can't talk at the end of the quarter. If anyone has any questions, let me know. But otherwise, that is all I have to report.
Thank you, Treasurer Faulkner. Anybody have any questions for the treasurer? Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to commissioner announcements and committee meeting agendas. So we'll go around the neighborhood, and if you are the chair of a committee, please share the information on your meeting times, days, etc., and what's coming up in your meeting agenda. And we'll start with 1C02. Commissioner Carano.
Thanks, Chair. So the next PSC committee meeting will be on the 26th at 7 p.m. On the agenda right now is introductions to our new committee members and two brief presentations and updates from two of our grantees from last year, Jubilee Jumpstart and Adams Morgan Day. So they'll share what they were able to do with those funds. Separately, more general announcements. A lot of new DCRA regulations coming into effect this month, including bans on gas-powered leaf blowers, which I've heard some constituents are really interested in. You can report tips if you see them being used in the neighborhood, so this can be enforced. And also new short-term rental licensing is now open for applications. If you have a rental on Airbnb or something similar, you'll want to sign up for that. And lastly, snow's in the forecast for later in the week again. So if you are interested in and haven't signed up for the DC Volunteer Snow Team, you can help neighbors clear their sidewalks when we have these types of snow events. So I'll put that link in the chat. That's it for me.
Hi, so happy New Year. I guess I'll start off by, forgive me if someone already said it, like all of the general service stuff, leaves and snow collection and removal is slow throughout most of the city. So if it's an issue still, feel free to continue to communicate. I'm trying hard. And also balancing that with some interest in everything rat related. Meeting with some quiz tomorrow. If anyone has any further interest for me to come by, or whatever relevant commissioner, please reach out. It's a constant battle and a community effort. Thanks to everyone, it feels like ages ago, who came out to Carol last month. Residents and staff at Christ House and Joseph's House really appreciated that. There's also a couple of issues in the Calorama Park playground area, still working on trying to figure out when those will get resolved. The work order has been put in. Sometimes those take a while. The hammock still hasn't been repaired. The American flag disappeared, and we were still waiting on a new DC flag. I'm trying. Hopefully I'll have an update and just have them fixed at some point soon. It's also going to be ANC redistricting at some point. So I continue to encourage people that have feedback as that process advances to reach out to your commissioner or to all of us or whoever you feel appropriate or comfortable with. And I think, and then also just thanks to everyone who, I think it was all of the commissioners that were seated at the time for 1C that signed onto the letter feels like ages ago as well, last December, regarding emergency legislation to suspend encampment evictions. Unfortunately, that legislation did not pass. We still are dealing with it as a community, and it being, the injustices of the housing market and people that are struggling, especially with this cold weather. So we see anything, one, help people if you can, and two, feel free to come to us as commissioners to try to mitigate the problems as best we can. It's hard. Not having a house over your head is even harder. So I really appreciate the people who have been very vocal advocates in the right direction on that.
Thanks. So for PZT agenda, the PZT agenda this month, our meeting will be on January 19th, 2 weeks from today. The two things on our agenda currently are a discussion with Derek Avoit from Ddot about the Adams Morgan East-West traffic analysis, which is something we are considering on our agenda today. But that will be a time for some additional discussion with Ddot ahead of what may be a pilot program of one-way streets, and that is linked in the agenda. And then we will also have Mignon Bowie from Ddot, who I believe is also here today, but she'll be attending the PZT meeting to provide some updates on Ddot projects in our neighborhood. So those are the two things on the agenda. And then just one other announcement that people may have already seen this, but yesterday Metro announced a plan to run to basically cut Metro bus service starting next Monday, hopefully just temporarily, but as part of, it sounds like they're seeing a lot of folks out with COVID and are having a hard time fully staffing. So the buses will be running on a Saturday schedule starting next, a supplemental Saturday schedule, but it appears that all of the buses in our area will be on their normal Saturday schedule. Some areas they add additional service. So just keep an eye out for that. I know it will make it hard for some folks who rely on the bus. The Metro will still be on the normal schedule it has been. That is not being reduced. But just since our neighborhood is obviously well served by a lot of bus routes, that's something to be aware of. And that's all for me.
Commissioner Felsenthal, would you like to say hi or make an announcement?
I don't have any announcements yet, still getting settled in, but I'm really excited to be here. And I've been an Adams Morgan restaurant for about 7 years now, in DC about 13. This is my home and I love it. And I'm here if anyone has any questions. I'm always ready to chat. And just excited to just make our neighborhood, even better than it already is. So thanks so much for having me.
Good evening, everyone. I don't have too many announcements. Most of them just relate to projects that we will be doing in the future that are going to be coming up with us quickly. The first is we're going to be looking for someone to take over Gordon's position and help us conduct our meetings in the relatively short period. We'll be putting out an RFP for that. But if you do know of anyone, especially if there's anyone in the neighborhood who would be interested in taking on that role, please email me and we can get that started. I'll put the email in the chat. And then also a little bit more long-term, but looking at maybe working on our website a little bit more, making it a little bit more user-friendly. So if there's also anyone who's interested in that project, please let me know. Thank you very much.
Sorry, is it to me? I did my announcements earlier. Sorry about that. So I am good to go.
All right, thank you. Thanks all of the commissioners. I also wanted to mention that the ABC committee meeting is a second Wednesday of the month. It's on January 12th, and we will be discussing Andy's Pizza, which is actually taking over the End Pizza spot next to Bossa, near the subway on 18th Street. So next on our agenda are public announcements. Public announcements generally, please keep them to about 2 minutes or less. And if you would like to make a public announcement, please raise your hand and Gordon will promote you so that if you need to share your screen or anything like that, you can. The first person who I'd like to introduce for public announcements is Declan Falls from the council's chairperson's office. Thank you so much, Declan.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much for having me, commissioners and members of the community. My name is Declan Falls. I just joined Chairman Mendelson's office in the fall as a part of his constituent services team. So I'm sort of making the rounds to ANC meetings to introduce myself and make sure that you have my contact information, and to invite people to reach out at any point to me, whether it's with a constituent services concern our office can help with, or if it's questions or statements for the chairman, I'm happy to take those as well. I'll put all of my contact information in the chat in a minute, but for reference, my email address is dfalls, so DFALLS @dccouncil.us. In line with taking comments, questions from whoever wants to send them to me, and I'm happy to send them on to the chairman. I did talk with former Commissioner Imrani a little while ago. He sent me the resolution that your ANC did about traffic safety, and I passed that on to the chairman. A couple of announcements from our office. So there was a ledge meeting earlier this week, yesterday, with a couple of changes. A couple of highlights from that legislative meeting were additional grants to support local small businesses in the district, as well as Councilmember Pinto's bill to require schools to provide students free period products in school bathrooms, as well as a whole bunch of other topics that came up at the legislative meeting yesterday. And then the one other announcement I wanted to make is that coming up this upcoming Monday at 5 p.m., the chairman is going to be doing a public town hall on Facebook. We call them Meet Up with Mendoz, where he spends about an hour responding to constituent questions. We don't omit any of them. So if you want to submit them ahead of time, you can always email them to me, or you can join the Facebook Live for the chairman's Facebook page and put them in the comments. So I hope some of you are able to make it to that town hall meeting. Again, that's Monday, this upcoming Monday at 5 p.m. If you're not able to make it at that time, it will be broadcast on Facebook afterwards. So I hope some of you can join. Otherwise, I think that's all I have for today, but thank you so much again for having me at this meeting, and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Declan. Thanks for your time. Are there any questions from anybody for Declan in the Chairman Mendelson's office? Thank you so much.
Thanks again.
Next up, we have Ali Bobek from Councilmember Nadeau's office.
She's coming.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Happy New Year. It's nice to see everyone. For those who may not know me, my name is Ali. I'm the Deputy Director for Constituent Services for your Ward 1 Council member, Brianne Nadeau. So if you don't want to email Declan and talk to the chairman, you can definitely always feel free to email your ward council member, and I am your constituent services representative. My email is aboback@dccouncil.us. I'll go ahead and put that in the chat. I think Declan actually gave some great council updates, so I will just say, to get updates for what Councilmember Nadeau is doing, please do join our mailing list. If you go to brianneknadeau.com, you can sign up there. And feel free to reach out to us for anything such as trash pickup. We've been working on a lot of public safety improvements that we're hopefully going to see very soon on Columbia Road. I know that's a huge priority for the community, so it's one that our office is really pressing on. Been working with MPD, Ddot, of course, who has to implement the changes. And I know Mignon is on, and we were talking about that today. But besides that, I just kind of had general updates today, unless any of the commissioners had questions for me.
Thank you, Ally, and Happy New Year to you. Are there any questions for Ally from the commissioners? Are there any questions for Ally from any of the attendees? Thank you. And Ally, if you could drop your information in the chat, that would be great. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Next up, we have Kristen Barden from the Adams Morgan BIT.
Hi, how's everyone doing? Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
All
we
right,
can.
great. Okay, great. So I just wanted to give folks a little bit of an update of some of our spring and a little bit of winter programming. We're not doing a ton of winter programming, but there's a couple of things coming up that I thought would be of a lot of interest. Just as a reminder, I'm Kristen Barden. I'm the Executive Director of the Adams Morgan Partnership. We're the Business Improvement District in DC, in the Adams Morgan neighborhood of DC. So for those of you that are history buffs, you might remember that the 100th anniversary of the Knickerbocker Theater disaster is coming up later this month. And so we are working with, there's a working group that Josh Gibson is a part of, folks from the DC Public Library, Kevin Ambrose from the Washington Post, who's written a book about the Knickerbocker Theater disaster. There's a group of us that have been working and trying to figure out what we can do to promote or to pay tribute to the loss of life that happened in Adams Morgan 100 years ago. So we were going to do two events, one at the MLK Library on Saturday, January 29th. That unfortunately has been canceled because the library has postponed all in-person events. So the slideshow and historical presentation is not going to happen on January 29th, and I don't have a new date for that. But the event that is going to happen is going to be outside on Friday, January 28th, in around the kiosk and the Heritage Trail sign that is that commemorates the tragedy in the Knickerbocker Theater. So that is currently where our holiday display is. And that's all gonna get taken away tomorrow. So there'll be plenty of room come the end of January. I don't have an exact time yet for that. We're trying to coordinate with some of the victims' families that are still in the area. So as soon as we have a time, we will publicize that. We're gonna do a flyer and put a lot of information around the neighborhood so folks can gather for that. But that will be a candlelight ceremony. We're going to do a bell ringing for each one of the victims, and people are welcome to come with masks and pay tribute to the loss of life that happened 100 years ago. That before 9/11, that was the single largest loss of life in the District of Columbia. So it's a pretty significant part of DC and Adams Morgan history. So we're pleased to be a part of it and to help get the word out about the significance of the event. And then our date nights event that we do in February and March will be kicking off again in early February. And that is an opportunity to win all kinds of really fun date night gift packages. So we buy hotel nights at the Line Hotel paired with dinner at the Mintwood Place restaurant, or drinks at Jack Rose, and then dinner at Big Sky. So there are all kinds of different date night packages. Some are great for couples, some are great for grandmothers and granddaughters, some are great for mother-daughters. It's a whole range of different kinds of date night packages. So it's an opportunity to get and explore, a little bit more of the Adams Morgan neighborhood. So pay attention to our social media. We'll be making announcements about how to win all those great date night packages really soon. So in the next couple of weeks. And then later this early spring, we're going to be replacing the streetlight banners. not with new designs. The designs are not changing, but we couldn't possibly take down RBG. She's much too popular. But we are going to be replacing them with new banners that will look identical. The ones that are up there have not worn well. They've gotten really dirty and really moldy. Unfortunately, the manufacturer really did not live up to their claims. So we are going to be replacing those, ordering them now, and we'll probably be installing them in March. So you'll see new banners coming up soon. And then just as a placeholder, come May, we're going to be doing our outdoor movie nights again in next to Marie Reed School in the soccer field. Those are going to be Tuesday nights this spring, from May 24th through June 21st. So if you want to put those dates on your calendar, they're really fun outdoor movies. We haven't decided on the theme quite yet for this year, so stay tuned for more on that. But that's a little bit of a look ahead to some of our spring programming, and then the Knickerbocker Memorial event later this month. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Kristen. That's a great series of events. Are there any questions from commissioners for Kristen? Are there any questions from the participants? Thank you so much, Kristen. Thanks for all that. Okay, great. All right, so next up we have Mignon Bowie. She's the new Ward 1 liaison to Ddot. We're excited to have her here. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure. I'm seeing a few new faces, and I've seen a few people, a few commissioners I've been able to have some meetings with. So it's a pleasure again. My name is Mignon Bowie. I'm the new Ward 1 Community Engagement Specialist from Ddot. I'm coming from DC Housing Authority, so this is a new transition for me, but I'm extremely excited. I just wanted to briefly introduce myself and put a face to the name. I don't have any updates today, but I will have some updates, as Commissioner Faulkner had mentioned, for the January 19th Planning, Zoning, and Transportation Committee meeting. So I will be sure to have those updates for you all then. And if you need to reach me in the meantime, my email address is mignon.bowie@dc.gov. I'll put that in the chat box. But until then, thank you.
Thank you so much. Good to see you at the meeting, and we will definitely be reaching out to you.
I look forward to it.
Are there any questions from commissioners for Mignon Bowie? And any questions from the audience? Okay. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And next up, we have Ms. Davenport from 3D. Ms. Davenport.
Hi, how are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Latoya Davenport. I probably have met some. I'm with the U.S. Attorney's Office. I'm the 3rd District Community Outreach Specialist. I don't know if you were able to join us last month for our opioids event. That was very successful. We had about 40 guest participants. We had people from the medical examiner's office, pretrial services, CSOSA, that talk about the use of opioids and how it works when you're on supervision. It was a great event. So for January is Human Trafficking Month. We will be hosting a human trafficking event. I am working on a flyer. We will partner with PIW and some other nonprofit agencies, as well as for our quarterly hate bias task force meeting, where we will be talking about mental health this month. So that flyer will be available soon. If you can, please join. If you can't, please share. Also in February 17th and February 23rd, we will be hosting a criminal justice series. And in that series, the first series, we will have the criminal justice system from the U.S. Attorney's Office, OAG, CSOSA, pretrial services. But on the second series, it's going to be a little different. We're going to have judges from Superior Court, District Court, Drug Court to talk about how they determine if a defendant is held and how do they go about sentencing a defendant. Because in the community, we had a lot of concerns about MPD making the arrest, U.S. Attorney's Office papering, and people are returning home with gun charges pending. So they will be able to talk about some of the crimes and concerns that the community is having dealing with releasing defendants. So those are all the updates. If you are not on my distribution list, if you can put your email address in the chat, you will receive all our upcoming events, our monthly, what is it called? Court report, and anything that's going on within the 3rd District.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, do the commissioners have any questions for LaToya? Any questions from the attendees? All right, great. Thank you, Ms. Davenport.
Thank you, and Happy New Year to everyone.
Happy New Year. Okay, so next up we have the consent agenda. The consent agenda is things that are added to the consent agenda tend to be uncontroversial. If somebody finds that something on the consent agenda is controversial, you can make a motion to take it off the consent agenda. So today we have 6 items on the consent agenda. They are the minutes from the December 21st meeting. They are the financial report that Treasurer Faulkner shared with us earlier. They are the authorizing signatures for the bank account because our officers changed. We needed to update that information. We also have a meeting schedule that needs to go on file for 2022, and we have a security fund authorization form. It is mandated that ANCs participate in the security fund, paying $25 into it, so we need to authorize that. Does anybody have any questions about the consent agenda items? If not, then I would like to move to vote on the consent agenda. I think I need a second. I don't know. Maybe I do. I got a second. Okay, thanks. All right, we're going to vote on the consent agenda. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, please say nay. And anyone abstaining. Thank you. So that passes 7-0. Thank you so much. So now we're going to move on to the regular agenda. The first part of the regular agenda is the ABC. We need to get Natalie and Greg. Natalie and Greg, could you raise your hands, please, so Gordon could promote you? Natalie and Greg.
They should be coming up now.
Thank you so much. Fantastic. Okay, great. I don't know if you wanted to share your placard. We could do that, but if not, that's perfectly fine. I just so this is Natalie Mufson. She and her business partner Greg have been placarded for a distribution, a Class A retail license, operating out of 1701, otherwise known as CubeSmart. Go ahead and take it away, please, Natalie. Go ahead and let us know a little bit more about what your business operations are, please.
Yeah, of course. So as Fino said, I'm Natalie Mufson. My business partner, Greg Farron, is also on the Zoom. We're two of the three partners of Mufson, Farron, and Brand. Our third partner, unfortunately, couldn't make it. He's lives in Paris and has 2 small children, so we're hoping for his sake that he's asleep. And so we're seeking, as Fiona said, we're seeking a letter of support for our stipulated ABRA license, which would be an online retail license to operate out of the CubeSmart on Florida Avenue. We're a small DC-based business. There's only 3 of us, is all of our members, and we're all native Washingtonians. I'm from Cleveland Park, and Greg is from Adams Morgan. And so we're an online direct-to-consumer wine and spirits business, and we're hoping to import small-scale producers, small-scale independent wine and brandy producers that haven't yet otherwise been imported into the US, and then sell them directly to customers online, which is a great thing that we can do in DC. And so we're starting small and with only a few producers. And so there wouldn't be any impact on traffic or loading. CubeSmart has its own loading dock. And so we're not anticipating any problems with that. So yeah, if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
So you said that it's a small operation, and then so how do people access your product? You're saying that it's an online operation. Is it just solely a website based? I buy a product on website, and then you ship it to my address, or you have a delivery person bring it to my door? What are some of the more practical points of an operation like this?
Yeah, of course. So the CubeSmart location is where we are storing our wines and where we'll be packing some of it up. And we have another location outside of DC that will be doing other larger scale packing and shipping. But so that location would only be only a small amount of wines and spirits would be coming into that CubeSmart. And so yes, the customers online, there's an online shop and there's an email kind of offering. And so the customers, you pay for it online, you put in your address, and there's no brick and mortar location where you come in and purchase anything. It's all done online, and then the products are sent to your home.
Yes, and the placard is specifically for use of the CubeSmart as a distribution center. You don't plan on having any activities there other than people that work for you or with you to access the inventory and get it out of the building. You won't. The placard is specifically as a retail entity, just not a storefront retail. Correct?
That's exactly right. It will be me or Greg in there packing up boxes.
Yes. Hi, Greg. Do you have anything to add?
No, I think Natalie really covered it. But thank you so much, and thank you for considering our application.
Thank you, Commissioner Wood.
Hi, thanks. So thanks for presenting. Just one quick question, just to make sure we get a clear answer. As far as just security of the products themselves, in case like after hours when no one's in the office, could you just kind of give a little bit of detail on just what that looks like on the premises?
Sure. I can walk through that. So CubeSmart has a loading dock door, which is secured after hours. During hours, that door is open through a keypad that only folks who have access to the building can access. Then there's yet another keypad to get on the elevator, and only folks with a code for the 5th floor, which is where we happen to be located, which our storage unit is, have access to that. And then there is a large padlock on our storage unit, which I have the key for.
That's great. More secure than my liquor cabinet. That's all I have. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from commissioners?
I have one. Natalie, Greg, it's great to see you here, and sorry for the back and forth through November and December trying to get you here. It was
Not
too
at
bad
all.
that Abra just put the wrong location there and that we had to work through that. So we're glad to have you here, and we're happy to be able to try to expedite it by putting you on our monthly meeting and not having to go through the committee first. And just for public awareness, that's the reason why we did that, was because there was some confusion in the Abra placarding that put the wrong address in place, and these folks have already waited for a long time. So we decided to put it directly on the monthly meeting in order to make sure that this went ahead as quickly as possible. And I guess my only question for you all is, you said that you'll be in there during the hours that CubeSmart is open. I imagine that you're going to be working mostly around shipping hours as well. So it's not like you're going to be in there super late at night or doing things early in the morning or, any weird hours. Like you'll be in there around the hours that like FedEx and UPS and like those kinds of stores are open, correct?
Absolutely. And just to give you a little more detail, and first I should say thank you so much for helping facilitate this, Commissioner. Really is appreciated. We would only be there during regular business hours, I would say. And further, in the beginning, we're such a small operation, we won't have regular shipments even on a daily or a weekly basis. There may be one shipment coming in per month. So the shipment will come in. The truck will pull into the loading dock door will close, we'll unload the truck, take it up to our storage unit, lock it there, then come back the next few days, pack up our orders into boxes, load them back into a truck, take them to FedEx or UPS or the post office, and that's really the extent of the physical operation.
Great. So it won't even be like a bunch of different cars that are coming back and forth. You'll literally be putting in one truck and taking it there to the shipping offices.
Yep.
Yeah, that's correct.
Great. Thank you so much. This seems like very low impact on the neighborhood, and we're happy to support a local business. So I, for one, am very supportive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. As Commissioner Falaschini said, yes, we put this on the agenda because it's a retail license also with very limited impact on the neighborhood. And that's why it didn't go through committee, that's why it didn't go through committee. So are there any questions from the attendees? All right, so to be clear, the agenda item is a consideration of the placarded license. So we need to vote on that. If we do pass that, we can then move to also vote on a stipulated license. But the first vote, because of the way the agenda was written, is to vote on consideration of the license, of the placarded license. And so that's our first vote. So I move to vote on, if we have no more questions, no more discussion, then I move to vote on consideration of the retailer's Class A license for this Abra 119225 Mooks and Farron and Brand LLC. Can I get a second, please?
I will second.
Thank you. All those in favor of supporting a license for this retailer, a Class A license, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. And any abstentions? Great. So that passes 7-0. So the next, so I move to then support I make a motion to support a stipulated license for this Class A retailer. This will need a second because it is not on the agenda, but I believe that we have to first place it on the agenda. So I need a second to place it on the agenda, and then we will subsequently vote on it. Could I get a second to place a stipulated license consideration on the agenda?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 So that places it on the agenda, and now we have to vote on giving the retailers a stipulated license. Can I get a second for that?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of a stipulated license for this Class A retailer, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Any opposed? Please say a nay, and any abstentions. Great, so that passes. So we will be sending a letter. Natalie and Greg, thank you for letting us do our administrative stuff. So we will send a letter of support, supporting your retail Class A license. And we will also send a letter clarifying that we will allow a stipulated license with our letter of support.
Great.
And
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
And that should go out by the end of the week. And if you have any questions about that, please feel free to reach out to me or Commissioner Falaschini.
Great. We will do. Thanks so much again.
Thanks so much.
Looking forward to seeing your operation.
Absolutely. We'll keep you posted once the website's live and things are up and running.
Thank you so much. Next on the agenda is planning, zoning, and transportation, consideration of the Adams Morgan East-West traffic analysis. Commissioner Faulkner, do you want to start that off, please?
Sure. So we discussed this at the PZT meeting in December, but the Adams Morgan East-West traffic analysis was in response to a request from neighbors and the ANC several years ago to explore converting some streets in the neighborhood to one-way streets. I can also paste the link, or if someone else has it, to the letter and the analysis in the chat. And what Ddot has proposed is a pilot program to make the I believe it's the, sorry, I'm making sure I say the section, the blocks one way, making the I think it's the 1800 block of Wyoming and the 1800 block of Calorama, but correct me if that's wrong, one way as a 6-month pilot program. In order to reduce, neighbors had said that there were issues with cars doing U-turns in the middle of the street and high speeds of traffic. And this proposal would make those streets one way with traffic calming, with contraflow bike lanes, and also hopeful, and also keeping an eye on alley issues with people diverting to alleys to avoid the one-way streets, or to that is the proposal from Ddot. Again, this would be a 6-month pilot program, and if we vote to support it, the Ddot proposal needs ANC support, then there would also be an NOI, a notice of intent, and a comment period. So just so everyone knows, this is still, I think, very much, there is still a period of time for feedback if we do vote to support it. And as I mentioned on the agenda, about the PZT agenda, is Derek Voigt from Ddot, who I think is the point person on this project, will be attending that meeting. Yeah, so that's just sort of a brief overview. If anyone has any questions or thoughts.
Thank you, Commissioner Faulkner. Yes, so are there any questions from commissioners before we get to, yeah, okay, Commissioner Felsenthal.
Yeah, I just wanted to share some thoughts on it. So I read over it, and I definitely agree. It could be like really helpful for folks who are living on those streets. I've seen myself the issues with drivers just doing really insane things, and I think this would really help alleviate it. The only thing I want to note is I noticed on Ddot's letter that they noted that I think over 95% of drivers were under what was in the speed limit of 25 miles an hour, which is actually really good. And, you know, keeping in mind that if we move forward with this pilot, we'd be going from 2 tight traffic lanes, which does tend to reduce speed on roads overall. You know, we'd be moving to 1 traffic lane and 1, you know, contraflow bike lane. If we move forward with the pilot, I would want Ddot to, in its review of the pilot, to, I guess, pay careful emphasis to potential increases in speeds and how that might impact vulnerable road users. And, you know, I'm not sure if this could be possible as part of a pilot, considering the grade of the streets, but, you know, we might want to consider something like speed bumps, anything that we could do to, you know, keep the speed of traffic, you know, as slow as possible, you know, in terms of impact on other road users.
Thanks, Commissioner Felsenthal. Commissioner Wood.
Thanks. I'll be quick. Basically, the same points. This is probably one of the top issues that I've had constituents reach out to me for. So I know there's a lot of excitement of the potential for something to happen. I mean, that is one that, like, not necessarily just speed, but also even going under the speed limit when cars accelerate very quickly. It is scary. I say this completely non-hyperbolically. I did the 50 states ride a few months ago, and in the entire 60-mile ride, the only block of traffic where I felt that I was going to get hit by a car was on the 1800 block of Wyoming. It was crazy because the cars piled up because they're going 2 different directions. There's no space. A bunch of cyclists were there. I'm glad no one got hurt, but I mean, I've had even, I think a former MPD officer has messaged me before saying, I'm concerned that this will turn into violent situations because the drivers start yelling at each other. I've seen it firsthand. I've recorded videos of it and I've directed traffic on multiple occasions. Well, that's fun. I don't think any of us should do that. So yeah, on board with everything that has been said beforehand, and glad to see this on the agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner Wood. Commissioner Kaliskini?
I just wanted to note that our ANC has actually supported the one-way streets in the past as well. This wouldn't be the first time that we've actually supported one-way streets on both Wyoming and Colorama, and they didn't get implemented. So I think it's great that we have the opportunity to do it again. I hope that Ddot takes our recommendation seriously this time and actually does implement the one-way streets. And then second, I also wanted to note that if we do go to a pedestrian-only zone from Colorama up along 18th Street, this would allow buses better access up to Columbia in order to reroute around 18th. So it could be very important for doing the pedestrian-only zone along 18th in order to have this one-way traffic flow along Colorama and Wyoming, because then those lanes would be big enough for buses to travel down and would be easier to reroute around. I've heard that from a few folks around ideas for the pedestrianization. I think it's really important that we have this in place in case we go ahead and do that.
Great, thank you. Any other commissioner comments or questions? All right, moving on to attendees. Mr. Arthur Cohen. Arthur Cohen.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I'm a resident. I live on and have for a number of years lived on Colorama Road between 18th and Columbia. I have a dog. I walk him 4 to 5 times a day or more. I'm out there all the time on that street and neighboring streets. And what my perception is perhaps a little different. The one-way streets that I go on, traffic moves dangerously fast with people speeding and zipping through, and I see people in danger all the time. On the two-way streets, traffic moves slowly and cautiously, and I think that is a much better system. I don't know what dangers you're there, or I don't know that every street has to have a bike lane, and maybe the bike lanes can be put on existing one-way streets. But in terms of Colorama and Wyoming, I just don't see it. It scares me to think that I'm going to walk outside my house and we're going to have much faster traffic. And I guess I want to say I strongly oppose it. I also strongly oppose doing it in the middle of these pandemic situations where we don't know what it's going to be like. If anything, it's been like this for a while. This is the type of thing I would like us to see and wait until we have a little clearer sense of what's happening in the neighborhood. It's very, I don't see any reason to do it. And I think it's likely to produce more harm than good. And I hope that if anything, you're going to study this a little bit more. In the event that you are going to do it, which again, I'm strongly opposed to, I think it is essential that at any time you did it, you added some kind of speed bumps or something, if it's going to be one way, to prevent people from doing the kind of speeding I see on all the surrounding streets that are one way. Thank you.
Thank you. Edward Hughes.
Hi. So I live on Colorama Road between 18th and Columbia Road. I've actually been a resident of Adams Morgan since 1982, but recently moved to Colorama Road. I'm opposed to this move, and precisely for the reason that Commissioner Felischini mentioned, which is this is the camel's nose under the tent to deviate northbound 18th Street traffic onto Colorama Road. That issue came up last year. There was a hue and cry against it. It is ill thought, it is ill conceived and dangerous to turn a residential street into a main commercial artery by having 18th Street traffic deviate onto Colorama Road would be really a travesty to the neighborhood. I think the report is interesting because it doesn't mention why the conversion to one-way is necessary. That is, all of the usual issues that you would run into: safety, congestion, speeding, things of that nature, just aren't there. So it really does raise the issue of why would we want to do this? We're tinkering with the DNA of our neighborhood, willy-nilly converting roads that have been as they are for quite some time into one-way streets. And I do believe that it's really principally as a harbinger to be able to reroute commercial traffic onto Colorama. So I oppose this, and I ask commissioners to reconsider their positions on these issues and take the sentiments of the residents of these streets that you are manipulating into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other attendees with comments about this? Any other commissioners with comments or questions about this? If there's no more discussion, I will say that in consideration of this, Ddot is requesting a letter of support for these study findings, which, as Commissioner Faulkner said, would change the Colorama and Wyoming to one-way, adding some bike lanes. I do think that if we, I think that to certain people, to certain points that have been made, I think that the letter, I would propose a letter that also requests Ddot to consider traffic calming measures on those streets, not just change them and just, not just switch the parking and change them. I think that to the consideration of the neighborhood, if they are changed, to Commissioner Felsenthal's point about slowing things down, about the neighborhood slowing things down. I think if we do, I would propose a contingency sentence on the letter saying, please consider traffic calming measures, including speed humps, even something as simple as posting speed limit signs, which I know that I might be in the minority there, but I do think information impacts activity. And we can consider that. It looks like there's one more resident with a comment. Is that Dennis James?
Hi, this is Dennis James. Can you hear me?
Sir.
Thank you. So I'd like to talk about this east-west deal also. Yeah, I know it's kind of hard to believe, but I've actually lived in the same property on Kalorama Road, 1800 block, for 50 years now. So I've seen a lot of what's gone on. And I'm against doing the east-west combo of Kalorama and Wyoming. The study was appallingly ill-conceived. 2 days were studied. And a long time ago, before the pandemic, in 2019, not like looking at it, how it works in summer, spring, winter, fall, or, early part of the week versus later part of the week, just 2 consecutive days, Thursday and a Friday. So that to me is totally inadequate. You can have seasonal changes around here depending on, if a certain college is having some big event, then all of a sudden there's a flood of traffic into the neighborhood from the University of Maryland, that kind of thing. But, I just don't think that's enough really looking at the problem. But it just stuns me to look at the figures and see that Ddot claims that there's more traffic on Wyoming Avenue, the 1800 block, than there is on the 1800 block at Kalorama. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense at all, because people can come all the way from Massachusetts Avenue eastbound to Kalorama and go all the way up to 17th Street. Because of Harris Teeter's presence there, one-way pattern was put in from 16th westbound. So you can't go all the way to 16th, but Kalorama is a street that actually goes places. Whereas Wyoming really doesn't. It's kind of trapped between 19th and 18th. And you have to maneuver quite a bit to get, around to, say, Connecticut Avenue off of the 1800 block of Wyoming. And it's very crowded within like 19th Street and down to 18th and on Florida between the two. So, I don't know if Ddot even paid attention to the makeup of the two streets. On Wyoming, there's a large apartment building. It actually fronts, its address is Columbia Road, but it's it's a high rise, and there's a swimming pool built up, and there's a big parking lot underneath. A lot of people come into that. Perhaps that's what Ddot was counting a lot as sort of traffic through the neighborhood. But it's really just if you came in from 18th and turned right into that parking lot, you weren't really traversing that block of Wyoming. And the same thing would happen if you're coming from the other direction. But, I think it needs way more study, and it goes to a conclusion, which is wrong for a study, of what would be the result. I think it's well known in traffic circles that one way means faster speeds, even though there's only one block to do it on. There's this phenomenon that we've had since the pandemic of late at night, folks coming in and hot rodding around the neighborhood with, extremely loud vehicles. And I think that happens on the 1800 block of Kalorama, and I wouldn't want to see anything happen that would be able to increase that. So, as one of the other speakers said, we need to see what the picture is if we ever get out of this damn pandemic, not look at 3-year-old data that was from before the pandemic and assume we're making a correct choice now. Also, I would respectfully state that it's totally wrong to assume that, 18th Street might change its nature, and we would be the losers, particularly, Kalorama and Wyoming and further down California as well. all the northbound traffic from 18th would have to go somewhere. And it would turn either left or right onto Kalorama, most likely. Some people might see it coming and zoom out onto, I guess, California because it goes westbound. And there would be a lot of activity through the alleys, as there already is. So anyway, I'm against the ANC taking a positive action on this thing. It needs to be sent back for further study, like up-to-date study, not 3 years old. And, I'll let it rest there. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. We'll go to Arthur Cohen again, and then we'll go to Commissioner Wood.
It looks like he lowered his hand.
Commissioner Wood?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Hold on, Arthur.
That's fine. Okay.
Go ahead,
Thank
sir.
you. I did. Sorry, I lowered my hand when you said I was being called on. I support what the last speaker said very strongly. As I said before, Ms. Clem had suggested, though, and as I say, I really strongly urge you to wait and not do it. But if you did, I wouldn't, as Ms. Clem said, suggest, well, we tell them also to look at this. If you're going to do anything, I would condition it on some kind of measures such as speed bumps, not a sign, a traffic, a speed limit sign, does nothing. Unfortunately, that's the reason people put in speed bumps. But if you put those in, at least till we see what's like, that would be better. But suggesting that they think about it is an empty gesture in my mind, and will, just lead to more inaction in that area and people jumping ahead with this half thought out idea. So at an absolute minimum, I would suggest you do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Wood?
Thanks. Just to reiterate quickly, speed bumps, yeah, I like that. And I was just reminded of a brief point. Last year, one of the groups that actually was very vocal of support for this was the residents of the building that was mentioned on Wyoming, which is the Promenade, which they've said that they've had traffic issues and safety issues because of the difficulty of turning into oncoming traffic to get into their building, which, as far as I remember, is the highest occupancy building in my SMD and one of the larger buildings in the area. So, fruitful discussion, lots of points. It's interesting. But I do know that at least my discussions with the tenants union last year from the building were in favor of this specifically as a safety protocol.
Thank you. Is there any more discussion? Does anybody? Commissioner Faulkner?
Thanks. I guess I just wanted to clarify one thing for some of this discussion, which is just to note that we are an advisory body and we unfortunately can't control the ultimate design. We can do our best to, say we want a speed bump and we, want traffic calming measures, and we do have the opportunity to bring the process, as do, as do all residents of Adams Morgan. That just, I will also note that I don't understand fully why it took Ddot so long to produce the full analysis and provide it to us after doing the study in 2019. But that if we were to ask for another study, it seems like it would probably take quite a while for that to happen. And also just one final thing, which is that this is in fact a pilot program that will be evaluated. It is not a permanent change. And so if it is found that things are going faster, or it is, disrupted, or if neighbors decide, because my understanding is that the initial request that the ANC passed in 2018 was pushed by neighbors and requested by neighbors. If neighbors very strongly don't want the pilot program to continue, that is, it is again a pilot program. So just wanted to clarify that.
Thanks, Commissioner Faulkner. Commissioner Boots.
Commissioner Faulkner took a lot of my points I was going to say, but I just really want to reiterate that, one, this is a pilot, so this is the best way to study it and to see what it does to the traffic flow. And two, just I think in terms of these types of projects, Ddot doesn't always give us an opportunity to get another bite at the apple for a very long time. So I think really if we were not to move ahead on this, it's not a reality of we're going to get this back and be able to study it more. It's just probably going to be another cycle of years before we'd be able to put anything in. And so to me, implementing a pilot, being able to test it out to see what actually happens in the real world makes the most sense to me.
Thank you. Any other points of discussion, questions? Okay, so the motion on the table is consideration of the Adams Morgan East-West traffic analysis and to support this but with a letter. I move to amend this consideration to include a, by adding a sentence that asks Ddot for consideration of traffic calming measures. Would anybody else, would people find that a friendly amendment, or would people like to discuss that, or would people not like that added? Commissioner Wood.
So I apologize if this is a stupid question. Just for clarification, there's no actual letter that exists. It would just be kind of a generic, we support this.
It's exactly. The letter would be, at a duly noted meeting, a quorum present, we voted in favor of this study.
With that extra, yeah.
But as a point of consideration, we can add Ddot, we would appreciate you also considering, traffic calming measures that might include protected bike lanes, speed humps, or any other thing that people want to add. I do think that in consideration of some of the comments, we can add that. But what I'm asking is that would people consider those friendly additions to the letter of support, or if they're not, then we can discuss it more.
Oh, second.
Okay. Going back to discussion, it looks like we have a question from Mr. James, or a discussion point from Mr. James. Dennis?
Go ahead, sir.
Hi, thanks. It does seem odd to me for the ANC to take any action at this time if it's going to also further discuss this issue at the next PCT meeting. And isn't that shouldn't we have a complete community process before we take a sort of permanent position on a letter or the study, supporting the study?
We discussed it at our last PCT committee.
So yes, so thank you, Mr. James. Commissioner Faulkner can discuss this in more detail, but it was on the agenda of the PZT meeting, and the study, the person from Ddot who's going to be talking at the PZT meeting on the third Wednesday, the third Wednesday, is going to be discussing some of the traffic calming measures, the NOI, and the possible plan for implementation of this pilot. Correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner Faulkner, but the committee voted to support this after neighborhood discussion in the last PZT meeting.
Yes, we voted to place it on I think we just voted to place it on the agenda, but we did have a discussion in December and had the opportunity for input there. And yes, the plan in 2 weeks is not necessarily to debate the project, but to get an opportunity to hear from the Ddot, the Ddot folks that would be designing the pilot.
I'd also further mention, and I think Commissioner Faulkner went over this too, this came out of 2018, if I'm not mistaken, and Adams Morgan ANC 1C request in 2018 for a study, recognizing your points, Mr. James, about what the study did. But the study was 3 years in the making, and what our letter today would do would be to support the implementation of, first, a design with an NOI for more public comment, and a pilot program, which also would allow for public comment period. So this isn't, this is not Ddot just changing to one way without further comment in the next 3 to 6 months. Mr. Cohen.
A study 3 years in the making that they did for 2 days? Really? I mean, I honestly, a study for 2 days, 2 consecutive days, is not a study. It's a random snapshot that cannot be analyzed in a way that allows appropriate consideration of the effects of this. That isn't a study. That's just a glimpse of conditions. And I guess a lot of people who live there are trying to tell you that's not accurate, but somehow their study for 2 days seems like it's persuasive to members of the committee for reasons that I have a hard time understanding. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments or any other comments or questions from attendees?
I guess just, sorry for not raising my hand. I just wanted to note too that we can in fact weigh in on the NOI as well, and write a resolution. The NOI process is usually open long enough that we'd have a chance to address it in a meeting. And that means we would have great weight on that. And so Ddot would have to respond directly to our specific requests. So just wanted to add that.
Thank you, Commissioner Faulkner. Any other points of discussion or questions? Earlier, I said that the motion on the table is to write a letter in support of this study. That letter in support of the study would move the study forward to a design phase and an NOI phase. After the design phase and the NOI phase with public comment, it would then go into a pilot program. My friendly amendment is to include language in the supporting letter that would request consideration of traffic calming measures in whatever way Ddot sees fit for those, although we could suggest, and I'd be open to additional suggestions of such things as speed humps and protected bike lanes. Commissioner Felsenthal.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm in support of that addition. And I just want to note, I think Ddot is considering the contraflow bike lane as a traffic calming measure. So we may just want to specify, in addition to the traffic calming measure of the contraflow bike lane, consider additional measures.
Thank you. Are there any other points of discussion or addition to that suggestion on a contingency clause in the letter of support? Okay, so the motion is that we vote on a letter of support to the East-West traffic study with a contingency clause clarifying that we would like consideration of traffic calming measures when the pilot is implemented. Can we get a second on that, please? Well, I guess it's on the agenda. I don't really need a second. We just need to vote.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, are there any questions about what the motion is? All those in favor for a letter of support with a contingency clause about the East-West traffic study, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Are there any abstentions? So that means that the letter of support with the contingency clause for the east-west traffic study has passed 7-0. Thank you, and thanks everybody for your comments and considerations. The next item on the agenda is consideration of zoning relief related to roof structure on 1650 Harvard Street. Commissioner Faulkner?
Yes. I think I will not say much except to note that this did come out of committee. We voted in support. And I believe Jeff and there may be other folks from the applicant who are raising their hands, but I will turn it over to Jeff.
Great. Thank you so much, Commissioner Faulkner and everyone. If you could please elevate Art Lindy and Joe Eas as co-panelists, that would be very much appreciated. Meanwhile, I can just give an overview and I can also share my screen, or that might be a question. Thank you. I'm Jeff Utz with Goulston and Stores. I'm the land use counsel for the owner of this parcel. The application, as you mentioned, is a BZA relief application that relates to 1650 Harvard Street Northwest in DC. This is BZA case 20658. And again, we really appreciate the opportunity to get on your agenda and the amount of time that you all collectively have been spending with us. We are in ANC 1C05, so we don't actually have a single member district representative now, I believe still. But we've been meeting with Commissioner Irani, and then we presented to the Planning, Zoning, and Transportation Committee last month on I believe it was the 15th, and received a favorable response. We've also been in touch with ANC 1D. Got it.
Jeff, just sorry to interrupt. This is Deb Felsenthal. I'm actually your new commissioner.
Oh,
so
awesome. Great.
I just joined, so very nice to meet you.
Great, good. Yeah, good to meet you. I can follow up with you after this, but it is good to meet you. And yeah, good to be in touch. But thank you again for having us on the agenda tonight and everything else. But I'll send you the application so you have the package. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. Great. Well, so the application is one to renovate and expand the existing building on the site. The property is zoned RE2. It's about 39,000 square feet of land, and it has an existing 7-story apartment building with residential units in it. So, the site, I'm sure folks are familiar with it. It fronts on Harvard Street to the north, Lanier to the east, and then Quarry to the south. Then it has a neighbor to the west. So it is 7 stories. It has about 128 residential units, and it was built in 156 residential units. It was built in 1928. The project is going to be the renovation of the building and the expansion by adding a habitable roof structure on the building, which will bring the total of units up to 182. And the project has been the result of meetings with the Tenants Association. That's been about 2 years in the making. It's really kind of a model of outreach with the Harvard Hall Tenants Association and the owner, where the legacy tenants have essentially selected their individualized unit build outs for the folks that are coming back into the building. The relief specifically relates to allowing this habitable roof structure to set back less than 1-to-1 from Quarry Street and from Harvard Street. It currently is designed to set back 1/2-to-1 along those frontages. And the reason basically that this is required is the building design started about 2 years ago when the process began. We kind of got caught in the gears of the approval system where we're in for permit. We're actually really incredibly close to getting the permit, but the zoning regulations were changed in how the setbacks are applied to a roof structure. Right now, as of actually December 24th, the regulations changed so that a 1-to-1 setback is required along those frontages, whereas on December 23rd and every day before that, only a 1/2-to-1 requirement would have been required. So we just didn't get our permit in time, and we thought that would happen. We submitted our application a couple months ago, just seeing how the timing was likely to play out. And we still don't have our permit yet. And now we won't be able to get it until we have this BZA relief. So basically the main component of the roof structure is about 12 feet tall, and the setback along the frontages where that exists is 6 feet instead of 12 feet. And then there are a couple others, there are some railings, and there's an elevator overrun as well. So we truly got caught in the gears of kind of two competing processes, the drafting of some updates to the zoning regulations, and then the review and the issuance of the permit itself. So I think with that, I've talked about the technical details enough. I can turn it over to Art Lindy to say a few words about the owner and the process, and anything else he might want to say if he's available. Art?
I unmuted myself. Thank you. Can you hear me now?
We can.
Great. Thanks for I'll be very quick because I know that y'all are working very hard. I've been here a long time. Achilles Real Estate has been working with the Harvard Hall Tenants Association for 2 years. We did all we could to keep and bring back as many of the tenants as possible for this full system gut renovation of this 100-year-old building. As it stands right now, we have 33 returning tenants. Each will be returning to a custom designed unit. We worked with them for each legacy tenant for 7 to 8 months, getting everything just right and making sure everyone was comfortable with the home they be coming home to. Their rents will remain the same when they return to the unit, and they have all been relocated to apartments in and around the community where we continue to pay their rent and they pay us their original rent. Achilles itself is committed to what we call better living. And by that, we mean, better living for the community, better living for the tenants, and better living for the building that we construct and own. We are long-term owners. We generally own buildings for 20 plus years. So we are not turn and burn. We'll be members of the community for quite some time. We're also, part of that better living is a commitment to the environment. We're using a VRF system instead of a variable refrigerant flow system for air conditioning and heating, as opposed to a traditional split system unit at a cost of $1 million more in order to keep our energy costs down and to think about the environment. We have solar panels on the roof and LED lighting throughout. Just a few examples of our commitment to not only the tenants building a better building, but also to the community around us. And I will turn it over to Joe Eas, who can walk you through the architectural details.
Thanks, Art. Thanks, Jeff. My name is Joe Eas. I'm with Soto Architecture. We're a local DC architecture firm located on 14th and T Street Northwest. As Art and Jeff mentioned, been working on this building for quite some time now. And what you can see on the screen now is some of the aerial views and the roof views for where we'll be adding the penthouse to the building. So pretty impressive views for the surrounding nature, and obviously with the topography changes throughout this area going down to Rock Creek Park, you have a lot of grade change between adjacent buildings and whatnot. So on one side we have buildings looking over on us, on the other side we have a clear view towards the cathedral and into Rock Creek Park. Jeff, you can go to the next slide. There is a central courtyard within this building with below grade parking, and then the building is somewhat C-shaped but facing downwards. As Jeff mentioned, the Quarry Road side to the south and the Harvard Street side to the north are the two sides that we're asking relief for up on the penthouse. Go to the next slide. So this is a plan of our penthouse layout, and the areas that you can see that are hatched in orange are the areas that were compliant prior to the change in the zoning code that are no longer compliant, that we're requesting relief. So the primary reason that we're looking to request relief is that our vertical circulation for both the new egress stairwell on the south side of Quarry Road, which is required from the new building code requirements for the renovation, as well as the new elevators that we'll be putting into the building, are two of the most difficult items to locate within the building. If you can, it's a little faint on the screen, but the light yellow lines that are shown across the screen are the structural system of the building below. So that's sort of our first primary designator of where we need to place certain elements, especially items that span through the entire building. So those drove a lot of our initial decisions. So corridor walls at the penthouse, the elevators, the stairs, all of those were based around finding ways to fit within that structural system. And by doing that first step, it sort of leads us to that next conclusion of where the units and where the amenity spaces can be laid out. So, as you can see, if we're into the scenario where we're a one-to-one setback, the distances and the sizes of the space of the units no longer become feasible for the layout they have. The elevators and the stairs no longer become feasible for the location that we selected. And it really starts to impact the cost and the feasibility of the project as a whole. Exterior deck space is impacted. It's not as critical at the penthouse. You can go to the next slide, Jeff. Thank you. But then, as Art mentioned as well, this project is above and beyond the district's already aggressive energy and building codes. So one of the things that would be impacted next is our roof structure that allows us to place solar panels across the entire roof as well as green roof. So both of those are, the green roof is required primarily from GAR for the building codes, and then the solar panels is an elective approach from the owner. So by removing where our exterior wall planes are, essentially, we're going to lose that whole top row of solar panels and then likely that bottom row of solar panels along Quarry Road as well. So that's a major impact to the energy generation potential for the building. Any questions on these plans at this point? It's kind of a lot to take in pretty quickly. All right.
Hey, Joe and Jeff, can I make one additional point that I sort of like to emphasize? I'll leave that up. As the owner and the designer of this building, we're stuck between a rock and a hard place for the last, whatever number of months. If we design to a zoning code that's not yet implemented, but gets implemented, and doesn't get implemented, then we have a building that's non-compliant. And if we design to the current building code and then they sort of drop this change on us without a sunset period, we're really sort of driven to this request for relief. So we hope you'll think favorably upon this request. Thanks.
So the next couple of slides, we have our sections through the building. This one is looking at the Harvard Street, sorry. So the light dash gray line along the front angle was the previously allowable setback, and the red would be the new one-to-one setback. So this is just a graphic example of how the setback is impacting and what requires where the wall needs to actually move back, and how that basically forces you to remove habitable space from the penthouse. This is the west penthouse, which is not affected by the setbacks, and you can see it's already well set back. That's the side with the neighbor. And then once again, Quarry Road, you have the same issue where the setback is impacting the proposed penthouse. That's just the same view. So this is a sample rendering we did of the proposed penthouse on top of the building. One thing I'll note in this image is we've lowered the trees quite a bit for some artistic license in order to actually be able to see the view in our rendering. Anybody who's been down Harvard Street knows how well and mature those trees are. And actually up on the top floor of the existing building you're still at and within the tree canopy. So, one of the things that zoning asks us to look at is the visual impact of penthouses on buildings. And for us, the The impact from a 1-to-1 or 1-to-1/2 penthouse setback does not have a material difference on the building, and the penthouse itself does not actually have a material impact on its neighbors. And it's a close-up view of the 1-to-1/2 setback design.
Great, thanks, Joe. The one thing we didn't mention is that we are scheduled for a hearing as well. So we did get our hearing date of March 16th coming up at the BZA. But other than that, I think that brings our presentation to a close. We're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you for your presentation. Very interesting. I love the solar panels, and this penthouse looks nice. Are there questions from fellow commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Wood.
I'll be really quick. I mean, I haven't heard anything from constituents or Adams Morgan residents opposed to this. Has there been any feedback or just any kind of critical commentary that you three collectively have had raised your attention?
I can speak to that a little bit, only in the meetings that I've had with all of the tenants individually of the building. They tell me that their neighbors and friends from the community are super excited to see this happen. And at a minimum, because it is a demonstration of how collaborative development can work.
So no, I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Falaschini.
Thank you. We did not hear any negative commentary at all in the committee meeting that we had for this. The one question that I did want to ask for y'all is, does the increase of the number of units that are going to be in the building offer you the opportunity to have any new equitable zoning units in the building?
We, in complying with the inclusionary zoning, we are making a substantial payment to the housing trust fund.
Yeah,
Great.
so the addition of the penthouse alone itself incorporates the Housing Production Trust Fund, regardless of whether there's an increase of units within the building or not.
So just adding the penthouse is what allows for that contribution to the trust fund.
Correct.
Great. Well, certainly the presentation that you all did at committee was great, and I have no reason in between to feel like I would not support this completely.
Thank you, Commissioner. We have a member of the neighborhood, Pat. If you'd like to make a comment.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. There may have been no one at the committee meeting because the 200 footers did not receive notice until like 2 days before Christmas. While it was filed in November and the ANC received notice then, you will see in the filing that there was no effort whatsoever to notify the neighborhood and the 200 footers. So I would request that you delay consideration of this until February, since the BZA hearing isn't until March, so that the residents around there have an opportunity to even look at this. I mean, it's a very long filing. I mean, my neighbors and I were stunned to hear this. So I would request that you delay it. I'm not for or against it. That's not the point. It's that the 200 footers have had less than 2 weeks, and those include the 2 major holidays, to even consider this. But that's why no one was at the committee meeting, because we didn't know there was anything that we should be there to discuss. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Are there any other questions or comments from commissioners or attendees? Art, you were saying that the BZA meeting is in March. Is that correct? What's the actual date of that?
Yes, the hearing is March 16th.
So that is actually the same day as, okay. Commissioner Faulkner.
Yeah, sorry. It took me a second to unmute. That is helpful to know, I think, about the notification of neighbors, but I think the neighbors have had now the information for 2 weeks, and I don't think we have heard from anyone. I certainly haven't. I know Commissioner Felsenthal this is her district and she was just sworn in, but I don't know if she has received any correspondence. I certainly want to give neighbors plenty of time to speak up. So I don't know. I'm curious what people think, but I do think that we have not heard from folks in the last 2 weeks, as far as I know.
Thank you, Commissioner Faulkner. Commissioner Felsenthal?
Yeah, just to clarify, I can't say for certain whether or not I've gotten contact. I actually just got access to my ANC email like a couple hours for this meeting, and I haven't had a chance to open it up yet. So to that, I actually can't speak to.
Yes, I mean, neighborhood input is very important, but this has been notified. The neighborhood has been notified, I think, to Commissioner Faulkner's point. Commissioner Falaschini.
Sure. I mean, I would just say, there is a requirement that the neighborhood is notified, and so notices have gone out to the neighborhood, and the notifications come to the commissioners as well, of which of the neighbors those have been sent out to, the drawings and postings have been up in ISIS as well, I would say too that even if it were the case, no. The neighborhood does need notification and they need an opportunity to respond. But in this case, the building design is to the current code, and they're being caught up in a bureaucratic situation where the code is changing underneath them, and the design that they have created is in compliance with the current code, and that code has changed while they were seeking relief. And that is the reason why they are seeking relief. Even in a situation where some folks might not have gotten notification or don't feel that they got notification, I still am supportive of this going forward, given the very limited relief that's being sought, and the fact that the relief is only being sought because of a change in the zoning code.
Thank you, Commissioner Falaschini. Pat, if you have a comment?
Excuse me. I'd like to point out, in reference to Commissioner Falaschini's point, while the applicant sent the notice to the ANC, sent courtesy copies, the 200 footers or got is maybe the right verb, the notice comes from the BZA, not from the applicant. The applicant didn't do any kind of courtesy reaching out to the 200 footers. I don't know why the BZA took a month, but we did not get it until I think it was maybe the 22nd or the 23rd. So I do know some of my neighbors were away, but that's we didn't have notice, certainly by the committee meeting. We couldn't have attended because we didn't have notice. So I just wanted to point it out that the applicant didn't do it as a courtesy, but it comes from the BZA. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, just a question. Pat, the 200s, I'm not sure what that is referring to. Do you mind explaining?
Certainly. Or perhaps the attorney can do it better than I can. Residents within, if it's 200 feet or 200 yards, or it used to be 600, it's now 200, can be parties to the hearing at the BZA. They have a right to be a party.
Thank you for the comment. Commissioner Boots.
I just want some clarification that if the zoning wouldn't have changed, there wouldn't have been any need for any adjustment and it would have just gone through. So there wouldn't have been any comment period for anyone. Correct. Okay.
Is that correct, Jeff?
That is correct. Yeah, we were compliant until December 24th.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions from commissioners? Art, you have your hand up. Would you like to say something?
Yeah, I guess I just want to mention that as part of the permit process, we provided notice to the neighbors on the west and the southeast. So the Lanier Street property adjacent to us and the Harvard property west of us were sent notices of the permit application, but not of the zoning relief requested.
I can make one other note.
We didn't need it.
Art, I can make one other note appending to that. I think the reason for the timing from the notice from the Office of Zoning is that they didn't have a hearing date in time until the date that they sent it out, or right before the date that they sent it out. And then there might have been some COVID changed mail timing. So there might have been a delay associated with that. But it typically, the notice doesn't go out until we actually do have the hearing date of March 16th. So that's and yeah, Pat is right. It usually comes from the Office of Zoning itself.
Okay, Jeff, do the 200 footers, I'm sorry to interrupt. Jeff, do the 200 footers have a right to appear at the BZA hearing?
Yes.
As a party, I believe?
Sure.
Yeah, so.
The person and supporter. Really, everybody does, but yes.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions, points of discussion? So the question on the table is to consider the request for zoning relief relating to roof structure setbacks at 1650 Harvard Street. And we will take a vote if there are no other discussion points or questions or comments. Art, your hand is still up, just making sure that you do not have a comment or a question. Thank you. So we'll move this to a vote. All those in favor of a zoning relief relating to 1650 Harvard Street Northwest, say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, please say nay. And anyone abstaining, please. Thank you. So that passes 7-0. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
The next item on the PZT committee agenda area is consideration of a resolution of traffic safety and paving on Harvard Street and Lanier Place. Commissioner Faulkner?
Yep. Let me put the link in the chat so everyone can see it. But this resolution, basically, it was spurred by two things, which is that, so it is about actually the intersection that is right by the building we just discussed of Harvard and Lanier Place. And as people likely know, Harvard Street is the dividing line between 1C and ANC 1D to the north. And in 1D, they had just requested, they had supported a traffic safety investigation at that area for issues with traffic speed. And we were also notified, I believe, by Councilmember Nadeau's office that that area of Harvard Street is on the plan for street repaving this year, which is exciting, and also is potentially an opportunity to address that intersection, which is described in the resolution, but it is a weird kind of circle intersection. It's not a roundabout, but it's like, it's a very weird shape. It is not squared off. Cars are parked around the sort of the edge of this circle. It's, people, there's not very good visibility. If you're on Harvard Street, it's kind of hard to see the cars on Lanier. I think also pedestrians sometimes cross across the circle, and there's not pedestrian infrastructure there. So this is just a short resolution to support the TSI, the traffic safety investigation that Mount Pleasant ANC already requested, and to also bring it to Ddot's attention that we think they should address that intersection and square off the corners so that it is safer and narrower, as part of the repaving plan. And I will note that former Commissioner Gold, who was the 1CO5 commissioner, this has been something that he has raised to Ddot repeatedly, I think his whole time in office. And so, we are hopeful that maybe we will see some action on this intersection.
Thank you, Commissioner Faulkner. Are there any questions about this from commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Falastini.
I actually have a question for Commissioner Felsenthal, since this is her district, just whether or not she has any thoughts on the matter. We supported it out of committee, but we didn't have the opportunity of your expertise when we were thinking about it at committee.
Sure. Yeah, happy to share. I'm pretty familiar with this. I've talked extensively with Zach Gold, who is my predecessor in this role, about this. And I walk down there all the time. It's definitely an issue certainly for pedestrians, as well as, I've seen many speeding cars around that area. Very familiar with it personally, and practically I think this makes a lot of sense.
Thank you. Any other commissioner comments, questions? Okay, great. Pat, if you would like, go ahead.
Thank you. I have had a bird's eye view of this intersection for over 30 years and can attest to many things bad about this intersection. And I'd just like to propose some friendly things to consider, just as somebody who's been observing this for a long time. First, the traffic circle was removed. There was an actual traffic circle with the center many years ago. And it was done because the buses and the fire trucks could not get around it, the more modern ones. That's what I was told by people who had lived there since the 40s. Many of those buildings around there were built even before World War I. The problem starts much further up Harvard Street. It really starts at 16th Street. Cars turning, or any vehicle, sometimes it's trucks, turning either right onto Harvard or left onto Harvard, have no stop sign until that intersection at Lanier. They have a lot of time to build up speed, and many of them do. I witnessed it many times. There is one problem with the squaring off, which is a function of it having been a circle. Where Harvard Street and where the existing stop sign is not squared off. It's not at the same, I don't know what the right word is, the same intersection where Lanier would be when it intersects with Harvard, because they're on different parts of the arc of the circle. I'm not an engineer, much less a traffic engineer, I'm not sure how that would be solved, but I want to point that out, that squaring it off as Harvard Street exists right now isn't going to work in terms of safety. Two other quick points. One of the biggest problems when the stop sign was added was that they put, I don't know what the right term is, the regular size stop signs. Coming down Harvard, because of the grade, if there is a van or even an SUV parked on the north side, you literally cannot see the stop sign until you're basically there. There's no warning, there's nothing that there's going to be a stop sign on this very steep grade. On the other side of the intersection, the Lanier side, the Chalfant side, often there are moving trucks on that south side of it because there was a side door from the Chalfant onto Harvard Street. When there's a truck there, traffic coming down Lanier cannot see anything on Harvard. I'm not sure how that would be solved. I'm just pointing out that the problems are not just at the intersection. And the other thing involves Harvard Hall itself. As the semicircular driveway in front of Harvard Hall is now, a car entering that, or a vehicle, would go to the west, the further down Harvard, and then they exit going east. So when they're coming out, they're in fact facing towards Lanier, towards this intersection. It is a very short distance, and all the time, vehicles go the wrong way up Harvard so they can turn onto Lanier. I have seen far too many near misses and honkings and things like that. I would hope that that would be taken into consideration, and that perhaps suggest to the owners that all they need to do is reverse the direction so that vehicles would enter the semicircle from the east and exit the west, so they'd be much further down Harvard and would be then aimed in the proper one-way direction. So I am not in the least bit opposed to any traffic study there. There's certainly problems. I mean, the stop sign solved the many accidents at that corner, but it certainly only did something for the speeding. But I think that the resolution needs to be broader, because the core of the problem is traffic that's coming down all the way from 16th Street or Mount Pleasant Street, because there is nothing to stop them going down that steep grade until that stop sign at Lanier. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Next up, Zach Gold.
Thank you, thank you, Chair Clem. Good evening, commissioners. I just wanted to say thank you all for considering this resolution, and especially thank you to Commissioner Faulkner for moving this forward. As she noted, it had been on my agenda for over a year, working with a previous traffic study in which Ddot assessed the intersection and said in a very Ddot way, everything's fine. Clearly, it's not fine, as Pat just very kindly pointed out. She should have been on that Ddot study, because a number of the issues that she raised are very clear to anyone who wanders through that area. The purpose of squaring off the intersection would be to bring the intersection of Harvard to actually intersect with Lanier, as opposed to having a bulb out circle, so that from the stop sign on Harvard, you could see traffic on Lanier, and from the stop sign on Lanier, you could see traffic on Harvard, just as a neighborhood intersection should be. So thank you all for considering this, and a very joyous welcome to Commissioner Felsenthal. The SMD 1CO5 will be very well represented by you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Zach. Good to hear from you. Thanks for your comments. Are there any other comments or comments from commissioners, questions from attendees? Okay, great. We can move to a vote to consider a resolution supporting the traffic safety and paving at Harvard Street and Lanier Place. All those in favor of supporting this resolution as is, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, that's another 7-0 vote. Excellent. All right, moving on to the next agenda item, the Public Services and Environment Committee. A consideration of a grant application for Jubilee Housing Committee.
Yes, I'd actually like to motion to table this grant application for consideration to the February ANC meeting. The applicant has gotten some, or we and the applicant have gotten some feedback from OANC, and we want to work with them to ensure that it's approved so we can get full reimbursement for the grant if and when we do choose to make it. So I motion to table. Yeah, great.
Yeah. Table or postpone? Postpone to the next, postpone to the next.
Postpone to February.
Yeah. Okay, great. I second that. Any discussion? Any questions? All those in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great. That motion passes. Thank you, Commissioner Carano. And then the last bit of business we have is the Entice settlement agreement that we voted to add to the agenda at the beginning of the meeting a couple of hours ago. So the settlement agreement is was agreed upon yesterday. If you want to take a look at it. Entice is a new restaurant, a new restaurant license at the old Chief Ike's. Let me get the actual address for you. So Entice is, had a placard for retailer's Class C restaurant license at 1725 Columbia Road, which is next to El Los Toscanos. It's the old Chief Ike's area, there were some questions about peace, order, and quiet that got discussed, as well as some parking issues that got discussed. And the parties all came together and agreed on a settlement agreement yesterday that is in the process of being signed, and the owner has signed the settlement agreement. So does anybody have any questions or comments about this item? We can take some time to read through the settlement agreement if you want, or I can answer questions if you have questions about the settlement agreement for Entice. Hearing none, we can move to a vote. This vote is in support of is for ANC support of the settlement agreement for Entice at 1725 Columbia Road. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. And any abstentions? So that vote for Entice settlement agreement passes 7-0 also. So that concludes our meeting. Thanks, everyone. Looking forward to a great 2022.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thank you, Chair.